There's one more way to graph equations that's faster and easier, but we need to do a little bit of work before we can use it. So we had to talk about slope. Slope is a measure of how steep a line is. We use the letter M to represent slope. We need to remember first of all that slope is rise over run. There's also a formula for slope. Remember that which axis goes up and down for rise? The y-axis. So we put the y's on top, y2 minus y1, and the run is left and right. That's the x-axis, so the x's are on the bottom, x2 minus x1. A positive slope is a line that goes up from left to right. We read graphs from left to right always. A negative slope is a slope that goes down from left to right. Remember that slope tells how steep a line is. So if it's zero slope, that means there's no steepness to it. It's a line that's completely flat. An undefined slope is one that's sort of too steep. It's one that goes straight up and down. So we want to find the slope here. Remember, slope is rise over run. It tells us the rise is 14, so we'll put that number on top, and the run is 12. We'll put that number on the bottom. We leave slopes as fractions, but we want them to be reduced. So we can divide both of these numbers by 2, and we get 7 over 6 is the slope. So here, we just pretend like we're going to walk from A to B. We figure out, remember, it's rise over run. So how far do we have to rise? We would rise 2 steps. So our top number is 2. And then we figure out how far we'd have to run. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right. So our bottom number is 6. Again, we would reduce that. We can divide both by 2. So our slope here is 1/3. So let's look at this one. Again, remember rise over run. We just pick a point to start with. So we'll start here, and we'd rise. We have to go down though, down 2 spots. We'll do that, call that a -2 if you go down. And then right 7 spots. Because it's right, it's positive. And that's our slope. Can't reduce it, so we just leave it like that. Okay, this time we're given 2 points. Now we could graph it and look at it on a graph, but we have a different formula that we can use. Okay? Remember that points are always x and then y. So we'll call this first point x1 and y1. And then we'll call the second point x2 and y2. So our formula says that we take y2, which would be -6, minus y1, which would be 0, over x2, which is 0, minus x1, which is 3. So -6 minus 0 is -6. 0 minus 3 is -3. And -6 divided by -3 comes out evenly. Oh, not -2, but +2. So our slope here is +2. This is the same thing as 2 over 1. We're going to use the same formula here because, again, we're given 2 points. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we'll call this first one x1, y1, x2, y2. So we start with y2, which is -3, minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is 2, minus y1, x1, which is 2. So we end up with -6 over 0. Now, if you try to type this into your calculator, you'll get an error message. That's because this is undefined. This is an undefined slope. This would be a line that goes straight up and down. And we can see that because the x part is 2 in both places. So x is staying 2. That's going to cross the x-axis at 2. So let's talk about how to graph it. This point that they give us gives us a starting spot. So we're going to start at 2, -1. So I'm putting my point right there. Then it tells me my slope is -4. I'm going to make it be -4 over 1, so it's a fraction. And that's a rise over run. So from that point, I want to rise -4 and run 1. Now if the rise is negative, it means go down. So I'm going to go down 4 and run 1. So I get the point right here. Now I could keep going. I could go down 4 more and run 1 more. Or I could write this as 4 over -1. That gives me a positive rise and a negative run. That would tell me to go up 4 and then left 1. And you can see that those points are all on the straight line no matter how we look at it. The negative just needs to be in one spot. The other thing I want to point out is this is a negative slope, so the line is falling from left to right. It's going down. So here, again, we're given a point, 3, 3, so we'll put that on here to start with. And now it tells me my slope is 0. So remember what that means. That means that this line has no steepness to it. It's completely flat. And a completely flat line would go straight across.